Chapter 2. Recognizing your inner child's voice. The voice of your inner child is always there, whispering beneath the surface. But in the chaos of adult life, it's easy to miss. You might hear it in moments of hesitation, fear, or excitement, those fleeting emotions that seem to bubble up from nowhere. This chapter is about learning to recognize that voice, understanding its unique tone, and uncovering the stories it carries. Your inner child speaks through emotions, memories, and even the patterns you see in your relationships and behaviors. Sometimes it's a voice of longing or pain, seeking the love and attention it once craved. Other times, it's a voice of joy and curiosity, reminding you of the wonder and playfulness that still live within you. As we dive into this chapter, I'll guide you through the process of tuning in and listening. Together, we'll explore how your inner child communicates and what it's trying to tell you. By the end, you'll begin to hear that voice more clearly, opening the door to a deeper connection with the part of you that holds so much wisdom, creativity, and love. How the inner child speaks to you. I didn't always recognize the voice of my inner child. In fact, for years, I didn't even know it existed. I thought the moments of intense emotion or the nagging whispers of self-doubt were just me being too sensitive or overthinking. But the truth is, those moments were my inner child trying to reach me, trying to tell me something I had ignored for far too long. Your inner child doesn't always speak in words. It speaks through emotions, reactions, and even physical sensations. Have you ever felt a sudden pang of fear, even though you knew there was no real danger? Or maybe you've experienced a wave of sadness you couldn't explain, or an unexpected burst of joy that lit you up inside. That's your inner child. For me, my inner child often spoke through discomfort. I'd feel anxious in situations where I had to set boundaries or speak up for myself. It wasn't until I sat with those feelings that I realized they stemmed from a younger version of me, a version that felt unheard and unimportant in childhood. Every time I avoided conflict or stayed silent, I was abandoning that child all over again. Your inner child might also speak through memories. Sometimes, when I'm going about my day, a vivid memory from childhood will pop into my head, seemingly out of nowhere. It could be a happy moment, like playing hide and seek with my cousins, or a painful one, like being scolded for crying. These memories aren't random. They're your inner child's way of saying, "This still matters. I need you to see this." Another way your inner child speaks is through joy and creativity. Have you ever felt a sudden urge to dance, sing, or create something, even if it seemed silly or impractical? That's your inner child inviting you to play, to let go of the seriousness of adult life and reconnect with the freedom and wonder you felt as a kid. For example, I recently bought a set of watercolor paints. Not because I'm an artist, but because I remembered how much I loved painting as a child. The first time I sat down to paint, I felt a mix of joy and vulnerability. It was like my inner child was peeking out, curious but cautious, wondering if it was safe to come forward. Your inner child also speaks through the patterns in your relationship and behaviors. If you notice that you're drawn to certain types of people, or that you react strongly to specific situations, there's often a childhood story behind it. For me, I realized I struggled with trusting others because my inner child was still guarding herself against the betrayals she experienced when she was younger. The key to hearing your inner child is to slow down and pay attention. When you feel a strong emotion or sense a pattern in your life, pause and ask yourself, what's this really about? Is there a part of me that's trying to be heard right now? Your inner child doesn't demand perfection. It just wants your presence. It wants to know that you're listening, that you care, and that you're willing to create a safe space for it to express itself. When you begin to tune in, you'll find that your inner child has so much to teach you about your past, your present, and the person you're becoming. Listening to my inner child has been one of the most healing and transformative practices of my life. It's not always easy, and sometimes it brings up emotions I'd rather avoid. But every time I acknowledge that voice, I feel a little more whole, a little more connected to the person I was always meant to be. And I promise, if you're willing to listen, your inner child will guide you back to the parts of yourself you thought you'd lost. This concludes the first part of this module. Take a deep breath, focus, and take a few moments to reflect on what was discussed. In the workbook, there are questions you can use to start listening to your inner child. When you are ready, we will jump into the second part of this module, which will help you learn the difference between the inner critic and the inner child. Take a moment before continuing.